My son's pediatric nurse used a routine checkup to destroy our family, but that wasn't even the worst part. You see, the bruising on his elbow was from a fall my son took at the playground, completely innocent. But Geraldine didn't just examine it and tell us he would be okay like she was supposed to. Instead, she used his traumatic injury as an excuse to start checking in on our family, claiming she could help us through a difficult time. She started showing up at my husband's work with coffee, texting him about concerns for our son. When I found the texts between them 3 months later, I reported her to the hospital board immediately. But Geraldine came from a prominent medical family. Her father was chief of staff at the hospital, so the hospital board told me that without concrete proof of misconduct specifically during work hours, they couldn't act. My son's pediatric nurse was sleeping with my husband, and somehow this was ethical according to them. To pour salt in the wound, my own mother told me I should be grateful someone was looking out for my boy and that I was being paranoid, that the affair was all in my head, but it wasn't. It was out in the open now. Everybody knew they were sleeping. My coworkers made comments, and teachers at Charlie's school asked me how I was doing when Geraldine came to every school event, playing the concerned medical professional who was just trying to help. I had to switch pediatricians, driving 45 minutes each way because Geraldine worked at the only practice in town. My son would cry during the long drives, not understanding why we couldn't see Miss Geraldine anymore. The divorce was brutal. Geraldine testified as a medical expert about my fitness as a mother, using privileged medical information she'd gathered as our nurse. Every time my son had been sick, every question I'd asked, every concern I'd raised, she twisted it all. Said I had medical anxiety that was harmful to my son. Said the bruising incident showed I wasn't supervising him properly. The judge believed her. I got joint custody when I should have gotten full. The nursing board gave her a warning, but let her keep her license. She couldn't treat my son anymore, but that was it. A warning for violating HIPAA, breaking up a family, and lying in court. She kept working at the practice, and I'd see her car there every time I drove past with my son. 3 years passed. 3 years of shared custody, of my son coming home talking about Miss Geraldine and the fun things she did with him at Daddy's house. Then my mother reached out. Geraldine had left my ex-husband for another married doctor at the practice, Dr. Harrison, whose wife had just had a baby. My mother was appalled. Suddenly, she believed me about everything. I was wary, but my mother seemed genuinely remorseful. She became the perfect grandmother, attending every soccer game, hosting sleepovers, even paying for private school tuition. For a year, she was everything I'd needed her to be when Geraldine first destroyed my family. My son adored her, and I started to heal from the betrayal. One day, I came home early from a business trip. My flight had been canceled and rebooked for an earlier time. I walked into my mother's house to pick up my son and found Geraldine in the living room, examining my son's ankle. He'd hurt it at soccer practice. My mother stood there watching like it was completely normal. She's married to Dr. Harrison now, my mother said, like that made it better. She's reformed, and she's the best pediatric nurse in the state. I couldn't let him suffer when free medical care was available. I looked at my son, who was shrinking away from Geraldine now that I was there. How long? I asked. Just a few months, my mother said. She's been so helpful. A few months. My son had been alone with the woman who destroyed our family for months. The woman who had violated his medical privacy, who had used him as a weapon in court. I grabbed my son and left. I immediately withdrew him from the private school my mother was paying for and filed a restraining order against Geraldine. My mother tried to set up a $50,000 college fund that I couldn't touch. Only my son could access it at 18. Her way of maintaining control, of staying in his life despite what she'd done. 6 months later, at my father's funeral, she had the audacity to sob about how she just wanted to help. Geraldine's reformed, she kept saying. She's married to Dr. Harrison now. She made a mistake, but she's a different person. I looked at her in that funeral home, surrounded by family who thought I was the unreasonable one. And I said, when Dad was dying, did Geraldine help then too? Did you let her look at his medical records? Give her updates on his condition? My mother went pale. Her silence was answer enough. You let the woman who destroyed my family, who violated my son's privacy, who committed medical malpractice, near Dad in his final days, and you let her near my son. When you chose a predator over your grandson's safety twice, you lost the right to call yourself his grandmother. Full story on channel linked below.